Welcome to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Building Supply. I'm your host, Don Magruder. If you like today's show, go to AroundTheHouse.tv, where you can sign up for our YouTube channel and our weekly newsletter. This segment of Around the House deals with permitting. Permits are required when you do new construction, remodel, or do a large renovation around your home. It's a process that a lot of people don't understand, but it's necessary if you're going to do construction work on property. Joining me today are experts from the Lake County Building Department. Janie Barron, who is with the Office of Planning and Zoning, she will take us through the process of making sure your property is properly zoned for the project. And in joining us will be Kristie Miller, who's going to explain the permitting process. It's going to be a great discussion, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So with that, I'd like to introduce Janie and Kristie. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you, sir.
Good, thank you.
First, tell us a little bit about what you do in the building department. Janie, why don't you tell us first?
I am a senior planner with the Office of Planning and Zoning. I have been there for approximately 20 years. My job is to ensure that commercial projects and residential development are in compliance with our land development regulations and comprehensive plan. Additionally, we do review mines, industrial projects, and multifamily development.
And it's very important. A lot of people don't understand this. You may have a home, and it's already constructed, been there 30 years. But because of changes in land use and all, you may not be able to put a dwelling on, or there may be setback issues. And those are required that you first, before a project can go forward, it has to go through your part of the program to make sure it's approved for that particular zone. Is that correct?
That is correct. So our main function is we're normally your first stop. The reason being is because our land development regulations and comp plan acquire and have regulations for specific uses. So we need to ensure that what they're trying to build on a property can be done. It's a permitted use. And then the second step is to ensure compatibility with setbacks, lot coverage. So that's the other process that we do.
And it's probable or possible your zoning could have changed in 25 years.
That is correct. People can submit applications for rezoning. Previous owners could have submitted applications for rezonings. But the biggest change is our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan was adopted August 22nd of 2011, which changed a couple of rules when it came to future land use aspects.
Kristie, tell us what you do for the Lake County Building Department.
I provide leadership and participate in the review process. Customers come in, they bring in all their documentation. We assist them at the counter, make sure that everything is completed correctly, and then we'll take their monies up front for their plan review fees, place it in plan review, and then it goes through the process.
I guess the biggest thing, there's two issues when it comes to permitting. Number one, it's a process, and let's be honest with you, there's a lot of documentation. And then the other part of the process is you're getting so many permits, it's not like that when someone walks in the door, that's the only permit.
Right.
You're pretty busy now, aren't you?
Yes, sir. We are averaging about 50 people a day coming in the office.
How would you describe the purpose of the Lake County Building Department? What do you think your purpose is?
To ensure compliance and all the building, the licensing rules and regulations, to protect the safety and the welfare of the public. So to make sure the public is aware of what's required and what's expected of them. And
people fail to understand this. Most building regulations were a result of problems.
Right.
Failures with hurricanes,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Janie, if someone had a question about today's show and they want to talk to someone at the department, what's a good number, or how can they reach out to someone?
They could reach us through email. We have zoning at LakeCountyFL.gov. We also have planning and zoning at LakeCountyFL.gov. And they can reach us by calling 352-343-9641.
Janie, if someone's had a plan developed, say they're planning to remodel or a new home, and they want to start the process, you said the first thing they have to do is do planning and zoning. What's required to get their project through planning and zoning?
So normally for a zoning approval, for a residential zoning approval of a regular residential lot, they would bring a survey or plot plan drawn to scale to our office. They would bring a tax bill or legal description that provides the full description of the property to us. We would review the legal description to ensure that it's in compliance with our lot of record definition and our lot exception for density comp plan policy. And then we would ensure that the use was permitted to be there, that the structure's not encroaching into setbacks, because we do need to look at that to ensure that any existing and proposed development is in compliance.
For someone applying, what are some quick do's and don'ts?
The biggest thing when applying is to ensure that the plot plan or survey are to scale. Because
To scale, make sure.
it has to be to scale.
Yeah.
Because if you bring us a plan that is not to scale, then at that time we're not able to verify that the setbacks or that the proposed development meets the setbacks itself.
And for homeowners who don't understand that, scale means that if you draw 150 foot, that 150 foot has to measure a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch, and the stuff on it has to be a 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch.
Correct. Or
Yeah.
it could be like 1 inch equals 100 feet, 1 inch equals 20 feet.
Right. Janie, let's talk about permitting, because that's a big deal. Someone's got a plan now. I take it first thing we got to do is go through planning and zoning.
Correct.
After you have approved planning and zoning, they go to get a permit. Talk a minute about the steps in getting a permit. What's required and what should they be bringing?
So when you come to apply for a permit, your first stop is planning and zoning. So when you would come to permitting, you would need to have your application, the property record card, which is proof that you own the property. If it's an owner, they would need the owner builder disclosure, the zoning clearance that you would get from zoning, the plot plan that zoning approved, the engineered construction plans. And if you're applying in office, they have to be original. Yeah, that's about.
So, and if someone brings all this stuff, how long does it normally take to get a permit?
Right now, we're averaging like 3 to 4 weeks from the date of submittal.
And that's for a whole house.
Yes.
Now, we're talking, let's sort of track back. What projects do people need permits for, Kristie? It's not just whole houses or remodels. It's a lot of different things, isn't it?
Yes, like screen rooms, pools. Even if you want to screen in like your front entry, new construction, renovations, additions. Basically, you don't need a permit if you're doing cosmetic things like flooring, painting, cabinets.
Now, there's one thing in permit. A lot of homeowners think that they can't pull their own permit. And I understand homeowners can pull permits, but they are required to follow the same. People can work on their own home,
Yes.
but that doesn't alleviate the fact they have to follow the same codes and guidelines and hiring people who are licensed that any other builder
Correct.
does. So, for example, if a homeowner is planning to build their own home and they applied and they were going to act as their own general contractor, they would have to provide upfront list of contractors and their license and all that, don't they?
Yes, they can actually list themselves as the owner, as doing all of the, like as the subcontractors. However, if they hire people, like they hire it out, they have to be licensed.
And those people are subject to the same inspection as any other builder. I guess what I'm really trying to say, if you're going to take on your own project, you're going to have the same requirements as a builder. The law doesn't look differently.
Correct.
One thing, Janie, is we've got a lot of well and septic in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, a lot of people get confused about well and septic. Well and septic is controlled by the state of Florida. Explain that process. So if someone's out in the county and they're doing planning and zoning and they're doing well and septic, there's a little kink they have to do on that, isn't it?
That is correct. So when they apply for any residential project, if their house is serviced by a well and septic, they have to show it on the plot plan. They have to show the location of the well and the septic tank. And then once the zoning approval is issued, then they would go to the Department of Health in Lake County to be able to get a permit for either whether it needs to be upgraded, whether it needs to be serviced. So the Department of Health would do the review on that.
So that's another tripwire. Until that gets approved, it can't go to Kristie, can it?
They can submit, after they get the zoning approval, they can submit to the Department of Health and to the Department Office of Building Services concurrently.
And one thing we haven't talked about, and this is a big deal, not all zoning requests get approved. In other words, once again, we talked about the comp plan has changed things. Tell us what a variance is and what's the process for getting a variance.
So a variance is basically a relief of a certain part of the land development regulations.
Okay.
We do not issue variances to the comprehensive plan, but we do have the ability to issue a variance to something that's in our land development regulations. So, for instance, if someone comes in and their front setback is 25 feet from the right-of-way, but they want to be 14 feet because of a new addition that they're proposing to construct, they have the ability to submit a variance application. Then it would be, staff would prepare a staff report and development order, and then it would go to the Board of Adjustments for approval or denial.
But that's the process.
It is a process.
Normally, for a simple variance, any type of idea on time elements?
Normally, they get submitted the first Monday of the month, and then they would, if everything is submitted correctly, it needs to be advertised, and posting would have to be done on the property. So it would be about, I would say about 60 days.
Now, Kristie, going back to permitting, you just can't bring any plan up there. You have to have a plan that's been approved and sealed by a Florida engineer, don't you?
Correct, yes. The plans have to be signed and sealed by a Florida engineer or architect.
So if someone's buying it, a lot of people make a mistake. They'll buy a plan off the internet thinking they can do it, and it's not sealed properly. That just stops everything, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. We won't even take it. We'll send them away.
And roughly, to get permits for roofing and air conditions and all the various projects, you have a pretty extensive list on your website, don't you? In other words, not all permits are cost the same.
Correct.
How can someone access this rate?
If you go to our website at LakeCountyFL.gov, the fee schedule is available on there.
And what's a notice of commencement? I know that's a big deal in permitting.
That's basically kind of protects the contractor and like the suppliers, just letting everyone know involved in the project that there's work being done at the property and who to contact if money is owed, because if somebody doesn't get paid, then they could place the lien against the property.
And Janie, real quick, how are disputes handled? If someone has a dispute in the department, say they're not happy with something, is there an appeal process within the department?
So if, say for instance, we have an appeal process for any basically application that's taken in. So if a neighbor wasn't in agreement with something that the Board of Adjustment issued, then they would contact their own attorney to be able to appeal that process.
Janie and Kristie, thank you for being our guest today, and we've learned a lot from you about permitting. And I want to thank you for watching Around the House today. Be sure to go to AroundTheHouse.tv to sign up for our YouTube channel and our weekly newsletter. Until next time, we will see you around the house.